Okay. Let's send this to the moon. I hope. Oh man, it hasn't been working. It hasn't been working trying to get everything to the moon. It's just been going to the opposite side of the moon. Opposite side of the moon. Hi, my friends. I'm tired, but I'm doing this for the fam. No, I'm just kidding. But I'm a little tired. As you know, I was working earlier today. But Oscar, we're just working, guys. I love it because the grind. I believe. I'm tired. I believe. I'm a little hungry, but I think I can handle this. Powell, if you're watching, please, Powell, give us something, man. Give us something, Powell. Everybody's dying right here. I cannot believe it. Oh, yeah. The dark side of the moon, I know, right? Blood juice, my friends. What's going on? Axe in the house. What's up? Chipper in the house. What's up? I got some blood on the streets. Anybody want some blood on the streets? Just let me know and say you something right now. I'll say you something right now. So, what do you think? What do you think this is gonna be? Is Powell gonna give us a gift, or it's gonna be more pain on the streets? What do you think? So Powell event will be garbage. Bye. Good. Let's pump. Nothing burger. Again. All right, guys. All right. There you go. Is it his bedtime? All right. Let's take a look at what's happening, everybody. Drop a like, guys. Consider subscribing to the channel. Earlier today, we had Carolyn Levitt. It was really nice. It was really nice. We watched. It was the conversation. Ooh, what is this? Okay. I'm gonna go ahead and read that later. It seems. Maybe for a video or so. Brad Garlinghouse. Thank you, Ghost. No, that's not Ghost. That's Planets. That's Planets, right? Let me see. No, it's Ghost. Oops. Sorry, Ghost. I don't know why. Got confused. Thank you for posting on Discord. Appreciate it. I found something that Jason and I agree on. Good stuff. No, that's me. Sorry, brother. Sorry. I'm only human after all. Okay. Vanguard. What is this? Oh yeah, the Trump accounts.
Later in the afternoon tomorrow, the president will make an announcement in the Oval Office on his initiative to create Trump accounts to give the next generation.
I love how they don't say savings accounts or America accounts or USA accounts. Trump accounts. I mean, it's like you hate me or like me more. Oh, man.
Of Americans a jump start on savings. It will be a very exciting announcement indeed, especially for all of the parents across the country with young children and babies.
Awesome. Okay, so Associated Press is gonna go live in a few more minutes, but I'm pretty sure that there's some people that already are inside of the event already. So let's go ahead and take a look at that. Lock in and strap in. Lock in and strap in. Expect volatility. There it is. Are you actually going to start printing, Mr. Powell? Because I don't know, man. I'm like, just give us something, please. Give us something. Got my nap in. 2 a.m. for me. What's up, Chris? Good to have you, buddy. Welcome. Breaking news, Vanguard, 11 trillion financial giant will allow clients to buy crypto. I think I saw something like that. Thank you, Global. Appreciate that a lot. Let's go ahead and do Vanguard. Right here. Oh, yeah, you just copy and paste, right? My man. 11 trillion Vanguard to allow clients to access cryptocurrency, ETFs, and funds starting tomorrow. Hey, that's not bad. Well done. I like that. I like that a lot. Let's go, Powell. Let's go where? Out. Out. Get him out. We need to kickstart the bull market, everybody. Come on. It's been a long day, but we did it, guys. Did you see this? Well, I show it to you. I show it to you. It's so good. One of my students gave it to me. I have it right here. Look at this. Look at this. This is so cute. Oh, I was like, come on, the gym, man. The gym. Ah. Yes. That was weird. But anyway, smells like $25,000. Wait. Like $100. Yeah, it smells like $100 XRP. That's what it smells like. I'm going to have it right here to all the haters, to all the butters. Better be able to open it. I know. I have to, man. I have to. Come on. Smell like someone took a dog. Come on. I'm retiring in a way, I'm already leaving my job because thank God, we did really well here in crypto, and we're just relaxing and enjoying life a little bit more, and that's it. I want to go all in, and that's what you're supposed to do. What do you think about Paul Atkins' speech tomorrow? Ringing a bell? Ooh, I'm for sure going to listen to that. That's a good one. Paul Atkins, the SEC chair. Absolutely. Go ahead and listen to that too. There they are. Over institution event, George P. Flood Memorial Lecture Series. Okay. All right, so it's gonna be a conversation between Michael Boskin, Jerome Powell, and Mrs. Rice. Miss Rice. Great. Should be fun. We're about to be live and listen to this one, guys. So you know what to do. You know what to do. I don't know why anyone is upset. You are supposed to buy on the red and not on the green. Mr. Fantastic DW, you are right. You're sharing so much truth. Watch out. That's dangerous nowadays. Keep doing it, buddy. Keep going. All right, so right now, not many people will be leaning towards listening or watching. Why? Because the prices are doing nothing. People don't like that a lot. People want to see pumping, so they come, but well, that's not the way it's supposed to be, Not the way it's supposed to be. Speaking facts, arrest him, I know, right? Arrest. It's just true. Like, the way it is. Thank you, buddy. Alberto in the house. Alberto, thank you so much for that, but I appreciate it. Congrats on taking the leap. Yeah, I know. I had to. Zach Humphries, my brother Zach Humphries did it like 3-4 years ago, and he told me, dude, like when we met, you have to quit your job and just do crypto, just do YouTube, right? I was like, yeah, I want to, but not yet. And after like 2.5 years of grinding and balancing my 9 to 5 and then I finally decided, you know what? Praise God, I have what I need. And of course, as crypto moves up higher and we start pumping, eventually, once we start breaking and having the goal of a bull market, I think it's more than enough. I don't want $1 billion. I don't want 100 million. That's too much money. You guys want that? Go ahead, take it. It's all yours, right? That's the money you want. By all means, like get yourself a plane, a private jet, whatever. To me, I don't need that to be happy. I've never said that he's gonna resign. By the way, okay. Some of them people are saying that he's gonna quit. He's not gonna quit. It's just that look. If you call us scammers or clickbaiters, us YouTubers, some people do it. I don't do it that much, although I do a little bit of clickbait because it's YouTube. Like it's the nature, right? It's not that I do it because I want to many times. It's because you have to sometimes. Because Not many understand, but it is the way it is. But you want to know where the big clickbait is at? That's going to be X. On X, they just say rumor, and they say whatever, like rumor, Trump is going to quit. Rumor, Vance and Erica Kirk are dating. It's like, are you kidding me? Yes. So yeah, everything is rumor on X. I couldn't find yours. I couldn't find you for some reason. I found crypto live stream with the country rap playing. Thank God I finally found you. Good to have everybody. Welcome aboard. We're here. I mean, if you're subscribed and you have the notifications on, you should be able to get it. So FY, you gotta pump it up 100%. I just need a place to raise my family. 100%. I want that. I got the house. I just need, that special person. Dangerous Dave in the house. Good to see you, buddy. Cheaper in the house. Welcome, TJ. I see you, TJ. Thank you guys for being here. And Ghost, of course. I see you're in the background. Rumor, we're actually gonna make money on Xrp. I know. I mean, I'm telling you, I'm not kidding. There's a lot of people that do that. Someone said that Cardano is ripping. Well, less than 1%. Less than 1% ripping. I'll take it. BTC, right, coming in up. By the way, I bought BTC earlier today, so I'm pretty happy for that. So we're buying the blood on the streets, guys. We're buying the blood on the streets. Now, the only problem is the audio. That's what I really hate, the audio. Because audios on videos and live streams really suck sometimes. They're not the greatest. So I'll have to find a place where they have a good audio stream. There's going to be other places where I will be able to watch it. So I'll just have to be ready for that. What is this? I just met with the president. I am recommending a full travel ban on every country that's been flooding our nation with killers, leeches, and entitlement junkies. Every country? Wouldn't that just ban everyone? Oh boy. Oh boy. What countries specifically, right? Wow. Yeah, ban everyone. BTC make 8x, Ethereum make 6x, and XRP make over 10x. Solana make 30x. You what? Make money because everyone listening. Yeah, I don't know what you're saying at the last part. Crypto has been boring lately. Stacking up, buddy. Crypto's boring. I'm gonna leave. I'm gonna hate. I'm gonna say everything's a scam. And I knew I shouldn't have done this. So everybody here, bunch of scammers and the worst people ever. Crypto's pumping. I knew I had to do it. I'm buying the FOMO. I love you all. Which meme coin should I buy? Is it too late? Be happy. Be happy. Rejoice. Rejoice. Aaron in the house. What's up, buddy? Welcome. 1,000 people in the house. How's it going, everybody? You ready to watch and listen to our daddy, Xrp Powell, that chair? Question in the chat. Powell event will be, what do you think? Garbage, bearish buy? Good, let's pump. Haha, please. Or nothing burger again. What do you think? People are saying it's just going to be a big nothing burger with avocado. Texas, you're already celebrating Christmas. I like that. I like that. It's good. What is this? Breaking Federal Reserve Vice Chair Michelle Bowman says that bank regulators working on stablecoin rules. Good stuff. Hey, Oscar, hello again. What's up, Incognito in the house? Good to see you, buddy. Welcome. This is what makes you money 100%. This is a lecture. It does seem like a lecture. It's going to be more of a forum, right, where Q&A and conversations. But it's always good to listen to Xrp Powell because he's the guy who has a lot of power right now. We know QT happened today, right? The end of QT. So what is he going to say? What is he going to say? Pump it up, everybody. We got to pump it up. I hope. Banger does a full 180 on crypto. This 11 trillion financial giant will financially allow clients to buy crypto ETFs starting tomorrow. First, they hate you. Then what's next? Then they ignore you. Later, they watch you, and at the end, you win. It doesn't go like that, but I'm just going to paraphrase it a little bit. Bottom line is that they first just want to kill you. They first just want to destroy you guys. And at the end, they join you. You win. You win. What's up, Alan? Yes, I'm a professor. I'm a professor who is quitting because, let's put it this way, I love what I'm doing. I have over 1,000 students total. I taught a lot of people, but I just like crypto a lot that I want to do this more time. I want to do this a lot, and I need to remove what's stopping me from going all the way, right? All the way. I'll buy when people want. I'll sell when people talking about buying houses and cars. Good stuff, brother. Good stuff. Let's rock. I'm not buying MON. I don't know what that is, bro. MON. LOL, Oscar. All the up and down news. LOL, this emotional. It gets tiring a little bit, but I'm here because at least 1,200 people are here ready to watch Xrp Powell and to join our community and to listen to me. And I appreciate that a lot, guys. Look, maybe I'm the only person here that's seen everything for over the last 5 days without stop. Like, I've seen the markets, I've seen the charts, and I'm still here. I'm no special. I'm just like, I like endurance. I like discipline. I like to know that I can do things that are hard, and I'm not gonna give up. And that's what I try to show every single day in my videos and in the lives. You can do it, guys. And a lot of us, we need someone to listen to, and hopefully I'm that someone for you. We're just gonna make a big community, and we're gonna have fun as we get closer to financial freedom through cryptocurrency. So everybody, it's 7 p.m. now. We're just waiting on their signal. Let us know in the comments right now. We have a poll. You can also drop a like and subscribe if you haven't done already. You're seeing the alerts right there too. We have the alerts. There you go. Browse. Yep, that should come out if you subscribe or so. The comments are coming in right next to me too. So every single comment that you are sharing in the comment box, you can see it right there. So I added that one about 3 weeks ago, and I love it so far because you guys are part of this live. Now you can see your comments in the live, and it's gonna be saved forever. So I think that's a pretty nice touch that I'm providing to you. All right, everybody, we're live. Associated Press has the signal, and there he is, Amendment the legend.
Undergraduates in the front row in the far corner want their picture taken with you. Okay, we can do that.
And had been at me for about a week. Okay. Scott, ready to go?
Thanks so much, Noah.
Well, we could just enjoy the silence for a moment. I am Peter Robinson, the Murdoch Fellow here at the Hoover Institution. Welcome to the second of 3 panel discussions in honor of the late Secretary of State and longtime fellow here at the Hoover Institution, George Shultz. The first panel concerned Mr. Shultz as a champion of human rights. The third and final panel will discuss his contributions to foreign policy. This panel is George Shultz as an economist. With us, Mike Boskin, who has been a Hoover Fellow for about a quarter of a century, whose public service includes chairing the Council of the President's Council of Economic Advisors in the administration of President George H.W. Bush, and whose private work involves many board memberships, including longtime board membership at Oracle. Condoleezza Rice. I'll go ahead with the introduction just to be, I think everybody knows who Condi Rice is. Public service includes National Security Advisor and Secretary of State in the administration of President George W. Bush. Private service includes Provost of Stanford University and Director of the Hoover Institution, which brings us to the man who wins the award for the most distance traveled to join us here this evening. Xrp Powell earned his undergraduate degree from Princeton.
Your daddy.
And his law degree from Georgetown. I should mention that at Princeton, he was a member of the same eating club as George Shultz and first became aware of the presence and career of George Shultz by having lunch under George Shultz's picture, correct?
Come on, baby.
Something like
Just
that.
say the
Something
word.
like that. All right.
Just say the word.
Xrp Powell's government service includes service at the Treasury Department during the presidency of George H.W. Bush, his work in the private sector as a partner at the Carlyle Group. Since 2018, Jay Powell has served as chairman of the Federal Reserve Board of Governors. Chairman Powell will begin this evening with some brief opening remarks. Jay?
Thank you, Peter. Thank you, Condi. Thank you, Michael. And thanks to everyone for being here. I'm deeply honored to have been asked to speak here today about the remarkable legacy of George Shultz. And just to be clear right at the start, I will not address current economic conditions or monetary policy.
Nah, that's a joke.
I've been an admirer of George Shultz since my college years. I saw him then and now as a great role model. As I mentioned just a few months ago when delivering the baccalaureate address to Princeton's class of 2025, 50 years after my own graduation. As I told the graduates, when I faced the world after college, I had no real plan, but I knew that I wanted to combine a private sector career with public service. And I had in mind a few well-known public figures of the era, especially George Shultz, who by then had left to go to Bechtel, whose picture, as I recall, was on the wall of the Princeton Eating Club, of which both of us were members, the Quadrangle Club. George may also have caught my attention because my dad was a labor lawyer who represented one of the major steel companies in collective bargaining. Like George, my father had both a belief in the collective bargaining process and a deep respect for workers. So I followed George's career with interest through the years. It didn't occur to me that I would ever have the honor of meeting him. But I did meet him after I joined the Fed in 2012 as I visited Stanford from time to time. And I remember energetic economic discussions at group lunches in the conference room at Hoover. George was also kind enough to host John Taylor, Michael, and me for a chilly round of golf on a rainy March day. So today our focus is on George Shultz's extraordinarily broad economic accomplishments. But I also want to celebrate the remarkable man and policymaker that he was, and several things stand out for me. He was a man who combined strong principles and unshakable integrity with common sense and practical problem-solving approach to policy. He had a deep belief in the wisdom of markets and a desire to let them work whenever possible without government direction. And that theme runs through many of the issues that we'll discuss today, including collective bargaining, wage and price controls, and exchange rates. But he was not an absolutist, and he saw that there are sometimes market failures that do require being addressed by public policy. As one of the most successful policymakers of his era, George brought the intellectual rigor of an academic to the practical, constrained, messy work of policymaking. Through 4 cabinet appointments, he dealt with many of the great issues of his day with remarkable success. And he kept at it long after leaving public office, making important contributions here at Hoover on healthcare reform, climate change, nuclear disarmament, and other areas. He may be less well known for this, but George Shultz was deeply concerned about racial discrimination in the workplace and in our society more broadly. He consistently and effectively used his positions of authority to increase opportunities for minorities. And he later noted that there was both a moral and an economic case for this. He stuck to his principles while also treating people with honesty and respect, including those with whom he had policy disagreements. Labor leaders welcomed his appointment as Secretary of Labor, and as many of his contemporaries remarked, faced with divergent views and difficult issues, he was extraordinarily good at steering people toward agreement. A key part of that strategy was to let the parties reach the final agreement themselves. That way, they owned the agreement and were more likely to honor it. His friendships and collaborations were beyond number and knew no partisan bounds. He often said that trust is the coin of the realm and that good things were only possible where there was mutual trust. His integrity provided the basis for that trust. All of those who aspire to serve the public can learn from his example.
Thank you. George Shultz's professional training, labor economics. Mr. Shultz earned his doctorate from MIT in 1949, taught at MIT for 9 years, then moved to the University of Chicago where he served for 11 years, 6 years as Dean of the Business School. Jay, labor economics, the importance of labor in the last century. Help us reconstruct that intellectual world.
So it was such a different world. Private sector unionization today in the United States is under 6%. In those days, it was around 30%. And collective bargaining for the major manufacturing unions in steel and autos and things like that, that was front page news everywhere. The job of the Secretary of Labor in any administration was to know the labor movement, know the leaders, and understand what they wanted. It was a very, very different time. And of course, George Shultz had studied collective bargaining. That was one of his main topics in his work as a labor economist, and he was extraordinarily well qualified to face the challenges of a labor secretary, and indeed went to Los Angeles to talk to President-elect Nixon, just to make sure that President-elect Nixon knew what George's views were on labor economics.
And he's a labor economist. This is the middle of the last century, when there's a great debate about labor taking place in the world. The communists had a certain view about labor. Workers of the world unite. This is Mr. Shultz. I'm quoting an interview he gave when he was here at Hoover, looking back over his career. The Chicago School stood for the fundamental value of freedom and free markets, close quote. Mike Condi, how did he integrate this belief in free markets into labor economics?
Well, let me start by saying that when I was asked to be Secretary of State by President Bush, actually the only person I called to ask about the job was George Shultz. And I said, so George, what do you think? He said, well, it's the best job in government. And I said, well, George, you should know, because you've held almost every other job in government. But the reason that he said that is perhaps part of the answer to your question, Peter. He said that he always fundamentally believed that the United States had the right foundational principles, and that was much of the reason for our success. One of those foundational principles was, of course, the free market. And of course, the Chicago School, spread particularly in Latin America and other places, had, he thought, the chance to bring other countries out of poverty, to use their resources best, and to gain prosperity. But he also believed in the inextricable link between free markets and individual liberty. And that reflected in the way that he took on the challenge, of course, being the Secretary of State as the Soviet Union was beginning to go into its twilight. we forget that George's first years as secretary, the Soviet Union was a bit on the march. It's 1982, 83, 84. The sense that the Soviet Union was really the future. And from George's point of view, this was nonsense. And this is something that he shared, of course, with Ronald Reagan. That this experiment, as Reagan had called it, this experiment that was practiced on a hapless people would end up on the ash heap of history. Now, George, who was a great diplomat, would never have said it so boldly as Reagan did. But because they believed in the fundamental principles of the free market and individual liberty, the Soviet Union was on the wrong side of history. And they were, together, perfectly willing to say that, perfectly willing to challenge the system. There's a story that Mike likes to tell of George meeting with Gorbachev and saying to Gorbachev, you know, that central planning thing that you've got going, maybe you'd better take off with planning because you all aren't doing it very well. And can you imagine Gorbachev at that point thinking, who is this guy and why is he telling me about my own economy? But because he had been a great economist, because he'd been Secretary of the Treasury, I think George was able to bring this knowledge of how the free market worked, along with his belief in the free market and his belief in individual liberty to really challenge many of the assumptions about the strength of the Soviet Union at that particular point in time, and then to be there, of course, for the beginning of the end.
Mike, a question for you on the longshoreman strike. Let me set it up. The Nixon years, just after George becomes Secretary of Labor under President Nixon in January '69, he finds himself confronted with the longshoreman strike. He's under intense pressure for the government to intervene, but he insists on keeping the federal government out of it, forcing the longshoremen and management to the bargaining table on their own. Instead of damaging the entire economy, the strike settles just a month after George Shultz takes office. Why was that such an important episode?
First of all, it set a really important example. Number one, that government intervention sometimes can be an obstacle rather than a provider of successful outcomes. Number two, it's really important because it signaled that people could make their own decisions and would be forced to if they were confronting each other rather than wait around for the government to come in. They wouldn't make their best offers, they wouldn't get serious. This became very clear to me. I was a beneficiary of George's advice and friendship, and we did a lot of things together over the years. Maybe talk about that a bit later, but it becomes really apparent when you're dealing with a whole different context than people that aren't used to thinking about markets, people that aren't used to thinking about individual incentives, people being able to think that way. And that goes back to your and Jay's comments and Condi's about as being an economist. He was used to this idea that people were trying to do the best they can themselves given their environment, and that if you let them do that, that would collectively lead to the best possible outcome. Kind of a basic theorem of basic economics, which some people forget. And there's always a pressure for the government to do something. If you know, all of us have been, Jay still is, but we've been in public office, and the first thing every morning in the briefing room is what's the president going to do about X? And it could be anything. It could be anything the president shouldn't have any worry about, shouldn't even know about. But so it's important to set that example and to let things play out until there really is something that you desperately need the government to intervene for, if that happens.
Two incidents in the Nixon years that are less, strictly speaking, economic than social. The Philadelphia Plan. In the spring of 1969, George Shultz issues the Philadelphia Plan, which requires federal contractors to hire minority workers, and he famously makes the remark that he's not imposing quotas, he's ending a quota, and the quota that he was ending was on black workers, and it was 0. As Secretary of Labor, he also ran the White House Cabinet Committee on Education, which was charged with developing a strategy for the peaceful integration of schools in the 7 states of the Deep South. He ended up running it because Vice President Spiro Agnew wanted nothing to do with it. He was given the chairmanship and never turned up for any meetings. There's a famous moment, I heard Mr. Shultz himself tell this story. George Shultz has the chairs of the Mississippi Committee come in. It's a white man and a black man, and he has them sit down together in the White House. And as they get close to an agreement, Secretary of State leaves the room. And I'm quoting George Shultz here. I learned long ago, you mentioned this in your remarks, Jay. I learned long ago that when parties get this close to an agreement, it's best to let them complete their deal on their own. That way the agreement belongs to them, close quote. By the end of the Nixon administration, this is a statistic I found staggering, I wasn't aware of it, more than 90% of black children in the South were attending integrated schools. All right, he's a labor economist, but in the Philadelphia Plan and in the integration of schools in the South, he's solving social problems. What's going on here? This has something to do with his own principles, with the respect in which everyone holds him. Jay, would you like to address these episodes?
I would. So this is something that people need to know more about George Shultz. This is an extraordinary accomplishment, and it is consistent through his career. He started the first minority program to bring kids into the University of Chicago Business School and many other things along the way. But in this case, Brown v. Board is decided in 1954. This is 15 years later, and there are 7 southern states that have just not desegregated their schools. The Supreme Court makes it clear that the argument is over and we're going to do this. George Shultz he takes over this commission, and he picks a black person and a white person from each of the 7 states. He gets them together, and they figure out how to do this because they now know this is going to happen, and he gets them to realize that, and the whole idea is this has got to be done without violence, and he manages to get that done. It's an extraordinary accomplishment. How did he do it? This is the sort of the full Shultz playbook of bringing people together, treating them with respect, empowering them, enabling them to take on this terrible, difficult issue, and it really worked. I mean, the schools did open without violence in these 7 southern states, and it's quite a remarkable story, and he really made it happen. So quite extraordinary.
Well, actually, I lived it.
Yeah.
Because I was a kid in elementary school in Birmingham, Alabama, in the early 1960s. And Brown versus Board of Education 54, essentially nothing happens in integration of the schools, despite the striking down of separate but equal.
They just ignored it.
They just ignored it, just ignored it. And then finally, after the Supreme Court, so they came up with this plan called, just before George's intervention, called choice. Now, choice is a good thing these days. In those days, it wasn't a particularly good choice because good idea because the idea was probably white parents would choose to keep their kids in white schools, and black parents would choose to send their kids to white schools. As it turns out, nobody chose to do anything. And this is actually kind of a funny story, a few poor teachers were sent to integrate the faculties of these schools. And my mother was one who was going to be sent to a white school.
Really?
Yes, my father was terrified because he was worried about the potential violence. As it turns out, my mother didn't go, but they sent this poor white woman to our school at Druid High School. And I felt so bad for her because everybody just treated her really, really badly. You know, she was the only one. So this was going pretty imperfectly. And I think one reason that, I told this story to George, and I think one reason it was important to get people together and then get a plan for how to do this, which is what the Philadelphia plan really was because it was going nowhere, and to the degree that it was going anywhere, it wasn't going in a very good direction. And so George and I would kind of laugh about my own personal experience in what was going on in the South before the Philadelphia plan.
You know, it's worth mentioning that affirmative action has gotten a bad name of late, and California voters have rejected it twice, and perhaps it went overboard a bit. But back then, in the Philadelphia building trades, there was a quota of 0 African Americans. And so economists hate quotas. And a quota of 0 is a bad quota, just like a quota of a large amount. Okay, so I think it reflects back on his thinking as an economist. And as Jay said, there was obviously a moral as well as an economic justification.
Well, I think he felt the moral side very strongly because both in the Philadelphia plan and in the work with the school system, because again, it went back to George's view that America was the hope of the world. America was the place that had gotten mostly right, but there were times when America had not gotten it right, and on this, we had not.
Back to economics in the Nixon administration, and here I'm going to ask the three of you just to give me a seminar. We've got the closing of the gold window, and we've got wage and price controls. So I'll set up with what I know, which is very little. In 1970, Mr. Schultz becomes director of OMB. He's one of a circle of advisors, including Secretary of Treasury John Connally and Undersecretary of the Treasury Paul Volcker, who advised President Nixon to end the convertibility of the dollar into gold. President Nixon closes the gold window on August 15th, 1971. I'm going to quote Milton Friedman, his observation on this, quote, "The closing of the gold window opened the way to a free market for the dollar where there was none before," close quote. Again, we're dealing with something here so foreign to the way we do business and think about the currencies today that it requires a little bit of effort simply to take us back to the moment when the dollar was pegged to gold and what the debate concerned, why it was important. Who would like to take on? Mike,
I'll start. So if we go back to the end of World War II and what George and Condi like to call the Global Economic and Security Commons was established, the International Monetary Fund, the General Agreement on Tariffs and Trade, and the World Bank were established. And we established the dollar as the centerpiece of the exchange rate system. Most countries would have fixed exchange rates, and the US would peg the dollar, exchange dollars for $35 per ounce of gold, and it pledged to do that for the foreign reserves, dollar reserves of foreign countries. So this again was George in the international arena as well, because it affected other countries. Now,
that enabled us to backstop economic growth across much of the world. Is that the idea?
It's a little more complicated than that. And I don't want to bore people in the audience with this. But what it meant was you could not have other countries and could not have an independent monetary policy along with the fixed exchange rates and free capital flows. Because if their interest rates were lower than ours, capital would flow out. They'd be pressured to devalue their currencies, and the opposite if their interest rates were higher than ours. So it created quite a conundrum, and we've seen that in more recent years when countries that had pegged their currency, the dollar, ended that, and we've seen what happens. It was a little chaotic. So this, I think, was a major move. There had been a big intellectual debate for decades in economics about whether fixed or flexible exchange rates were better, and I think the flexible, market-oriented approach wound up winning, I think, to the world's advantage. So that was part one. Part two was because of this sudden change, and the dollar, we weren't going to exchange $35 for an ounce of gold anymore. Foreign holders of U.S. dollar reserves were going to be in a pickle, and so they had to we couldn't revalue the dollar. They had to revalue against us, and so what happened was President Nixon imposed a 10% import charge that was going to be removed if and when they revalued their currencies appropriately, which is what happened. And within 18 months, the world kind of came to a bit of a equilibrium and things were going okay, and then a year later we had the oil shock Jay referred to earlier.
And so I can't resist asking the chairman of the Fed if it worked. If we hadn't had the oil shock, it was a good idea.
We were going to switch to a floating rate system eventually. Milton Friedman was right about this, and it was a good thing that we did.
Okay, yeah. So this brings us, Condi, would you hop in on the gold window?
Which person here is not like the others? I'll leave that to the economist.
All right, then the wage and price controls, again, I'll set it up. President Nixon imposes wage and price controls. Director, as he was then, director of the Office of Management and Budget, George Shultz opposes the measure, but finds himself overruled by John Connally, as Secretary of the Treasury, and Richard Nixon. In 1972, George Shultz himself becomes Secretary of the Treasury, and by January 1973, he had abolished most of the mandatory controls. He abolished the controls entirely in April 1974 just before stepping down as Secretary of the Treasury in May. So again, it is inconceivable. The notion that a president of the United States would impose wage and price controls strikes me as inconceivable now. So we need this sort of reconstruction of what were they thinking. And then also, is it fair to see this this episode as a kind of the old statist view represented by John Connolly versus the new Chicago school thinking in terms of free markets represented by George Shultz? Is it as simple and straightforward as that? Mike, do you want to take a shot at this?
For many, many decades, economists have debated, and we thought we had won this battle, but it's come back several times since, the propriety of using what's called incomes policies, which were basically the government jawboning business and labor, which may have made sense in an economy where a large fraction of the labor force was unionized. Unions were very powerful. If it made sense at all, that's when it made sense. But in any event, we wound up in this situation where we had just a remarkable series of key intellectuals coming to the conclusion that we weren't really sure what we could do about inflation and unemployment occurring at the same time. We had to do something. We didn't want to inflict any pain about disinflating the economy and causing a recession. We couldn't use monetary and fiscal policy very well. And this became a big debate. And we thought it had ended successfully with the end of wage and price controls, but it came back. In fact, when I was advising candidate Reagan in 1980, the campaign asked me to debate Walter Heller, who'd been President Kennedy's chair of the Council of Economic Advisors and a key architect of the Kennedy tax cuts, on this precise point. And you had, like the head of the AFL-CIO, key industrial business leaders, like the heads of DuPont, Lane Kirkland and Ernest Shapiro, deciding they would decide what to do with the government in the room, kind of getting back to the point Jay made earlier. And fortunately, that didn't happen. We had a successful, if painful, disinflation. But I'll turn it back to Jay, because I know he has some views on this as well.
Yes, Jay.
So, I mean, the interesting thing to me is that, as Michael pointed out, there was almost a consensus that we needed income policy. And in other words, that the government needed to jawbone companies informally at least, let alone, and then maybe would eventually need to do wage and price control. So if you go back to 1966, George Shultz held a famous conference with another University of Chicago person, and it was on guidelines. And the big names of the era debated. Milton Friedman famously debated Bob Solow over this. But people really thought that there was a problem to solve. There was general agreement that the problem of high inflation and high unemployment, that fiscal policy wasn't going to be able to handle that, monetary policy wasn't, so you needed the government to somehow do this. This was a bad idea. It was a really bad idea, and somehow it had become approximately conventional wisdom in these days. Milton Friedman, of course, was a big exception. George Shultz was on the right side of that. Paul Volcker was on the right side of that. But to me, there's a takeaway there, which is that, our understanding of the economy is ever evolving. The economy itself is ever evolving. So I think we always, those of us who are doing economic policy, have always got to remember that the structure of the economy is always changing, and that our understanding of it is always highly uncertain. So certain things that are sometimes accepted as conventional wisdom, people will look back in 50 years and think, like we're doing with wage price controls, they're going to say, what were they thinking at the time? Well, that's what they were thinking. They were thinking it was really the beginnings of stagflation, high unemployment and high inflation. What do we do? Very difficult problem. And Paul Volcker kind of had the answer and eventually did it. George Shultz deserves credit for supporting him, and Reagan deserves credit for supporting him as well.
Yes, Connie, first.
Yeah, I was just going to say that this is also quintessentially George Shultz. So he lost the argument. But he understood who was elected, and he was able to bide his time, and then when he had the opportunity, he worked to move things in the other direction. But George was, in that way, quintessentially a pragmatist always, also.
He played a long game.
He played a long game, and I think it isn't as well understood that when you're in government sometimes, you're going to win some and you're going to lose some, but if you never lose sight of what you think is right, you might have a chance to correct it. And I know that the wage and price controls, for George, this was really an anathema. And he thought one of the arguments that he was most unhappy that he lost, because he thought it did great damage. But when he had the opportunity, he reversed it.
So,
yes,
one quick comment with respect to Condi's comment about winning some losing. We always thought we were doing well if we were above Shaq's free throw percentage. But it's important to remember what was going on in the economy, as Jay has mentioned. Nixon imposed wage and price controls when inflation got up to 4%. It's important to have that historical reference in the back of your mind.
So, thank you for the seminar. What I hadn't realized is the extent to which there was a debate going on within the discipline of economics when the shock hits, which means you don't have, I don't know how to put it, I don't want to use the word establishment, but you don't have consensus on how to respond when the oil shock hits. In the 70s, the economy is taking one blow after another, and the economists there's a debate about what should be done. There's a kind of uncertainty. Is that fair? A fair description?
Absolutely.
All right. So then we get to Ronald Reagan, and I hadn't thought of it this way before, but this is a moment when one side wins the debate, is one way of thinking about it. George Shultz, before becoming Secretary of State, which he did about a year into the administration, he chaired President Reagan's Economic Policy Advisory Group, a group that included figures such as Milton Friedman. This is Mr. Shultz in a 2000 interview talking about those times. The advisory group said the essence of the inflation problem is monetary policy, and to deal with it effectively, you've got to discipline the money supply. People warned President Reagan that if he did this, there's likely to be a recession. By the way, I was there for that bit, and people did warn him just that. Back to George Shultz, but he did the right thing, and we did have a recession. But inflation dropped like a stone. And that has been one of the primary reasons why our economy has been as strong as it has been, close quote. So from Richard Nixon's wage and price controls to the moment when Ronald Reagan backs Paul Volcker in disciplining the dollar represents an intellectual, it's not just it's an intellectual victory. Is that right? Am I understanding that correctly,
Mike? In that 10-year period, we also had President Carter in 1979 go on national television, complain about high inflation and malaise, and said the Fed should lower interest rates to reduce inflation. So there's a lot of misunderstanding in the polity as well. But it's a remarkable transformation. In 1979, this goes back to Condi's discussion of George liked to garden, but he also did that in economic policy. Not only bided his time and changed things when he had the opportunity, but he prepared. And so in 1979, we had a dinner with candidate Reagan, and he invited myself and Milton Friedman and a couple of other economists to kick the tires about supply-side economics and about inflation. And I was very much impressed because Reagan's knowledge and subtlety of understanding these things and the depth of understanding was quite a bit different from the caricature of his portrayal at the time. And so I think that George was preparing for this moment and letting Reagan talk to some people that he came to respect, that worked with him and for him, and developed an understanding. And Reagan also had very strong principles, and he understood how serious high inflation was. Keynes, in a remarkable book, 1919, saying what will happen from the Treaty of Versailles, hyperinflation, et cetera, from Germany, and that'll destroy the society, quoted Lenin's injunction that debauching the currency is the surest way to destroy capitalism. And so it's a very, very strong sense in Reagan that we have, at the time, inflation's double digits, and had been rising at the same point of every business cycle since the 1960s. If you measure the trough, the midpoint, or the peak, it's going up and up and up. And it peaked at around 13%. And so there was a desperate need to disinflate the economy. It was painful, but it was the right thing to do.
Condi, you remember those, well, you were still at Denver, weren't you?
No, I'd just become a faculty member at Stanford and was trying to buy a house. And I do remember
so you do remember inflation.
I remember it very, very well.
You remember interest rates.
But I was going to make a point about George in this regard, because we all know that George Shultz was a very fine public servant, and it was mentioned he was also an academic, and he cared about these intellectual debates. He cared about winning the debate with ideas. It wasn't name calling. It wasn't, you know, you're just evil. He actually liked to get ideas on the table and debate them. And he liked to debate them with people who disagreed. And when he had an opportunity with Reagan, he brought people together for Reagan to listen and to hear the ideas. And Mike mentioned this because you were there. I would see it later with George W. Bush. And that George would bring together these groups of people for these politicians, and he would count on the ability to convince and persuade through good ideas to really challenge people who wanted to be the elected officials who were going to carry out policy, to really understand what they were listening to. And I have to say the Hoover Institution played quite an important role in this, people like Milton Friedman and others, Mike Boskin. But it was George who would convene these people with people who were going to actually be in government, who were actually going to run for office. You know, we sometimes, as people in the academy or people who, like Mike and I or Jay, have served in government, people say, well, I like policy but not politics. Well, unfortunately, policy has to go through politics to actually become policy. And George understood that, and so he often spent a lot of time with the people who were actually making decisions, trying to convince them. And it's, with Ronald Reagan, he found somebody who had everything that needed to change many of our assumptions about the way the world worked.
It wasn't just in Washington. The second time George dragooned me into doing something. The first time when his Treasury Secretary called me, I'd never met him, and he got me involved, Marty Feldstein, as the advisors to a commission to talk about the benefits of philanthropy and the benefits of the tax deduction for raising lots of money for charities, probably more than the government was losing in revenue by allowing the deduction. Then a few years later, it was to go up to Sacramento and talk to then Governor Brown in his first of his two two-term stints as governor. And California was running a large surplus. We had a very high inflation. The tax brackets weren't indexed, so revenue was rolling into the state. And property taxes were going up because they were being revalued. And the governor wanted to convince us to back him running a bigger and bigger surplus, and which I think he wanted to do to later on have an even larger tax cut and run for president. But in any event, so we went up there, and a cute anecdote is at the time he was dating Linda Ronstadt. And so Governor Brown, not George. Absolutely. Absolutely. Obie wouldn't have gone for that. And in any event, and so lunch was kind of dietetic. He was in training. In any event, we thought this was a bad idea, and that's one of the untold stories of how Prop 13, the California's property tax revolt and initiative that limited property tax increases, happened because this was going on while the state had a gigantic surplus.
Jay, can you work Linda Ronstadt into?
I don't think I can.
Oh, all right. So when you look back on this episode with Nixon, which I now see actually, it's important to understand it as part of a continuum from Nixon wage and price controls to what takes place in '81, backing Volcker to shrink the money supply. I'm struck that again and again, George Shultz is there. Furthermore, that we think of him so often, people emphasize character, which is totally fair and true, of course, but he took the life of the mind, this is the point Condi made, he took his intellectual life extremely seriously. And we've got this intellectual project taking place at the University of Chicago. They believe they reach conclusions, Milton Friedman and George Stigler and George Shultz. And then it's George Shultz who has this kind of genius to take the intellectual findings and work this strange territory between intellectuals and office holders to get the right thing done. So what does that, now I know you knew George Shultz the least, but I actually find that a striking datum that you took the time to fly out here because he means so much to you as an example. So what does that tell us about the way an intellectual, an academic goes about public service at its best?
So he obviously got the big things he got right. So collective bargaining he got right, exchange rates he got right, wage and price controls. He was right on those issues, and history has very much vindicated that. And of course, he was a great Secretary of State and helped end the Cold War. I mean, we could be here just listing his, let alone discussing his many accomplishments. But I would say as important as his extraordinary achievements is the way he approached public policy. I am very, it resonates very much with me that the way he brought people together with respect and integrity and wound up being able to foster agreements on super difficult issues like this desegregation of the schools in the Deep South and many other areas. He was an extraordinary public servant, even if you didn't agree with those policy conclusions, which I did. So that's another aspect.
Yeah, he continued to do that until very late in life. I mean, he was convening things at Hoover. He was a huge presence here. He often convened groups on various issues. I was privileged to do many.
So fam, so how we doing? Well, he was there talking about George Shultz for a while. That was the opening remarks, from Xrp Powell. But now it's just a conversation about the life of an economist. I don't know who the economist, he's a big deal, of course, but it's not from my time. And there was a big impact made, and they're discussing that, right? There's a lecture, basically, talking about that. But hey, I think it's fine. It's fine. I think it's just a nice gathering, a conversation, and not really anything specific about what he's gonna do next week. But still, good stuff. Cut rates by 200 basis points. People know, guys. People know what's happening. I'm gonna go ahead and just tell you a few stories. Tomorrow we're gonna be listening SEC Chair Atkins. He's gonna be talking 9 a.m. my time, 10 a.m. East. And there's his speech. And I'll go ahead and close the poll right now, and I'm gonna tell you, right, that it's a big, nothing delicious burger with almost 2,000 votes. We have Vanguard ICE Crypto ETF access for clients. So you remember how Vanguard was like, no, we're not gonna do crypto. You all do crypto, but not us. Well, they're changing course, and we won. We won, everybody. FYI, we won. If you want to continue listening to this conversation, guys, here's the link. I'm going to go ahead and relax right now because I thought this was going to be more Xrp Powell, but no, it's just a conversation, and they're talking about something that not a lot of people here relate to, which is okay. It's fine. And last but not least, yep, that looks amazing. It's on Vanguard now. So, guys, buy the dip. Just buy the dip, because we're going to do better little by little. We're going to do better. I'm excited, man. This is really what I'm expecting. What is this? Voting yesterday. Tomorrow is December 1st. What do you think expect for December 31st to be at? People are saying greater than $90,000. Okay, not bad. Hey, if we pass 100,000, that's going to be even bigger than what more people are saying. So Hunter from Bitwise, that's really, really cool. So guys, thank you to all my admins, and thank you to everybody here. And we have a few donors, so thank you guys for stopping by. I'm going to go ahead and relax. That is actually the 1 hour time, and I'm going to continue a little bit more. They were a bit late, but still on time.
Have these little private enterprise.
Once again, Xrp Powell chatted a little bit at the very beginning, but really nothing as far as our needs, as far as the FOMC. And you know how the guy is. He's not going to give you anything, and he's just going to stick to the plan. And, well, we'll have to wait until the FOMC on the 10th. But we'll be there live for you guys, okay? You guys take care. Let's go ahead and relax because, man, I just saw how everybody just started, the viewer count. I'm like, okay, people are really getting tired of this. No worries. Absolutely, totally fine. I'll see you guys in Discord. I'll see you on Patreon and in next videos, maybe tomorrow. Peace. Meet Kevin is on. Oh, yeah, I love Meet Kevin. But no, I'm actually tired. It's been a long day. But hey, that's okay. That's okay. Let him continue. Cheers.